Hello class, I'm going to walk through creating the frequency distribution that I created in the other video, but using the power that Excel gives us. And if you know Excel already and everything that you can do with it, a lot of this might just be redundant. Um, I'm just going to start with the basics that each of these squares that I'm clicking on, they are considered cells and they are identified by the column, which is the letter, and the row, which is the number. So you see here I'm in J5, and it also lets me know right up here where I'm at, which is J5. Some of the things that we can do with Excel is the math that I have previously mentioned. So for example, I'm going to add up these three numbers, and I'm just going to remember you start with an equal sign in any cell and then no spaces if you want to do the math. So it would just be like using a calculator. And that gives me 13. And you'll notice that the 13 is what I see, but when you look up here, this is what is actually in the cell. Now, the other thing that I want to introduce to you is instead of typing in numbers, referencing the cell where the number exists. So the way we do this, again, we start with an equal, and then I click on the cell where the number is that I want to add. So I'm clicking on that cell, which happens to be L3, and you can see we see it up here and we see it up here, down here. Now I'm going to hit the plus sign and I'm going to click on the next cell that I want to add to it. And that happens to be L4, a plus sign again, and I want to add whatever's in L5. So my equation is L3 plus L4 plus L5. That's telling Excel to add whatever is in those cells together. And again, we get the 13. So you look here, you see a 13. You look up here, you see what's in the cell. The beauty of doing it this way is that if the contents of that cell changes, my result will automatically change. So I make this a 7 instead of a 6. The sum of those numbers has increased to 14 because we are simply adding together whatever is in those cells. I changed this 4 to a 10, and now I have 20 down here. So that's the beauty of doing your calculations referencing a cell versus hard typing in the numbers. The other thing I want to show you before I populate this frequency distribution is when you reference cells, the way Excel is looking at that is add together the three cells above me. It's not specifically looking at L3, L4, and L5. It's referential. Excel in this cell is saying add the cell 3 above me to the cell 2 above me to the cell 1 above me. The beauty of that is I can copy this over here, and then it will reference these three cells and add these three together. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to hit Control C and then Control V. And now when I look here, I have a 6. It's added these three together. It is referencing M3, M4, and M5, which is this cell, and this cell. So that is a wonderful thing sometimes to be able to copy cells that are referencing other cells and for it to change where it's referencing. And again, I can change what's in this cell and my sum is automatically going to be updated. So that's the amount of what I want to cover in terms of special things that Excel can do for us, and let's use that to now calculate this. So our range, I'm going to use Excel to do the math, and I'm going to say equal 64 minus 6, and that gives me my 58. And remember, we talked about 5 classes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to say equal 58 minus 5, and that gives me 11.6. And remember, we always round up. So my first lower class limit is going to be my minimum value, which is a 6. And then to that 6, I'm going to add 12 to get my next one. So here, I'm going to say equal the guy above it and add 12 to it. That gives me 18. Now, I could type that in again here and here, but that's what I want to do in every cell. I want to take the number above it and add 12 to it. So I'm going to simply hit Control C and copy that to these three cells. So here I was saying take D8, which happens to be the cell above it, and add 12 to it. The next one, it automatically adjusted it to be the cell above it, D9, add 12 to it. Automatically adjusted it to D10. So that makes it a lot quicker to populate this frequency distribution. This is 17 because it's one less than the 18. And again, I'm going to add 12 to this. And I could type it in, or I have that formula right here. I have the equation that says take the guy above it and add 12. So if I copy this over here, it has adjusted to say take E8 and add 12 to it. And I'm just going to take that and copy that down to these three. So we're ending up with the same classes that we had on the previous video. And now the frequency is just a manual labor of counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are between 6 and 17. I'm just counting the numbers in our data set that fall within this range. 18 to 29. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. And then 30 to 41. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 42 to 53. 1, 2. 42 to 53. Yep. And then 54 to 65 is 1. Our midpoint, if you remember, that is taking these two numbers, this lower and upper limit of our class, adding them together and dividing by 2. So I'm going to reference this number. Oh, I have to put this in parentheses. This number, and I'm going to add to it the upper limit, and I'm going to divide all of that by 2. Now I can just copy what's here, which is just saying, take the number 3 to my left, add it to the number 2 to my left, and then divide it by 2. I have to use parentheses because if I don't, it'll do division before addition. And I'm just going to say Control C, Control V, and there's my midpoint. My relative frequency is just my frequency, which is this column right here, and dividing it by our total number of digits. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12, 13, 14, 18. That's why I have that here. Remember, if we add up our frequencies, that should equal 18. We may as well do that. We'll get into using formulas another time, but I'm just trying to keep this simple. We got 18, so I don't think I've messed up my frequencies. My relative frequency is my frequency divided by the total. So my relative frequency is equal to this divided by 18. And once I've done that, I can copy that all the way down. Whoopsie daisy, sorry. Okay. Let me adjust that. Cumulative frequency, if you recall, is starting with the first frequency and then just adding on. Our last frequency should be our total frequency, which is 18. So we start with 7. And then our next cumulative frequency is going to be take the one above me and add the number that's 3 to the left of me. Oops, I messed that up. Take the one above me. I need the plus sign. And now I'm going to add that to it. And now once I have that calculation, I can copy it. Yep, and we end up with an 18, which is good. Class boundaries is just we're subtracting 0.5 and adding 0.5. So I'm just going to do that manually because I have it all in one cell here. We got 17.5 to 29.5, 29.5 to 41.5, 41.5 to 53.5, and 53.5 to 65.5. And there I have my frequency distribution. A little quicker than doing it all out manually. A couple of things I wanted to point out to you. If you see numbers like this, if you've created our calculation and the result looks like this, let me point this out too. You can select a whole column or a whole row by clicking on the letter or the number. And if I'm calculating numbers and it looks like this, but I only want to see 2 decimal places, you know what? I can't do it without seeing the whole thing. Hold on one second. And it's format cells. I want to be able to show you that. Format cells in your menus. And first you select what cells you want to format. So I've highlighted this whole column. And I'm going to say format cells, and then at the very bottom, and I don't think you can see that right now, but at the very bottom of this menu, it says format cells. And here are the different things that you can do with your cells. But I want to look at this. This is looking at the data in my cell, and I'm going to choose number here. And this allows me to select how many decimal places I want to see. And I'm going to say 2 and OK. And you can see that it cut it off. Actually, it didn't cut it off. Actually, what it did is round it for us. If I go here, again, you can see here what is in your cell, but because I formatted it to only 2 decimal places, that's what it did. Likewise here, you can see what's in the cell is 0.232344, but it cut it off or rounded it because I said I only wanted to see 2 decimal places. My advice, go into Excel and just play. That is the best way to figure out how to do things. Just click on things, play around to figure out how to do things. And we will continue to do a little bit every week. So if you have any questions, please call me and have a good day.